Hello and welcome to the Father and Son Formula One podcast. This edition is about the Las Vegas Grand Prix that we had last weekend. I'm the father in the title, Graham Miller, and this is my son Toby.
Hello.
Um, so the Las Vegas Grand Prix.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you one thing I noticed. That obviously, we're going to get into like the free practice and the qualifying and the race.
Yeah.
And back me up on this. It's a street circuit, so it's like a bit like Saudi in a way. It's very fast and a street circuit.
Yeah.
There's a few run-off areas at the end of corners where you can go straight ahead and turn it round. But Colapinto put it in the wall at the end of one qualifying.
Yeah, quite badly.
Quite badly, yeah. I can't actually think of any other big accidents, because usually street circuits, people tend to slide out, they hit the wall. More often than not, they then bounce back onto the racing line and they scatter debris everywhere, and it's a bit horrible.
Yeah, big red flag because of all the stuff. So,
like the beginning of Monaco, for example.
Yeah, that was quite a. Yeah, that delayed everything by quite a bit, I think, didn't it?
Yeah, so, I mean, over like 3 sessions of free practice, an hour of qualifying, and I don't know the exact number, hour and a half, hour and 45 of a race. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I might have missed one, but even to have only 2 or 3 big accidents is quite unusual on a street circuit.
Yeah, I think they had 3 practice sessions though, didn't they?
Yeah, so they could kind of dial it in.
They really do. They had much more chance to get used to the track. Whereas obviously with the sprint weekends, I think if there had been a sprint there, it would have been a lot more. Because it would have gone from 1 hour of practice to wheel racing.
Well, you'd have qualifying, but you can't really dial it in qualifying, especially sprint quali. You've got like
less
fuel
time.
It up, get it out there for like, is it 18 minutes for the first run or 15 or something?
Yeah, something like that.
And also, it was a very cold weekend, wasn't it? Because so the time differences messed with my head, and I will hold my hand up now. I don't know what happened in your house, but here in the UK, we had the free practice sessions. FP1 and FP3 were at between 2 a.m. and 3 a.m.
Yeah.
And FP2 was at 6 a.m. and I didn't see any of them. I did wake up and check my phone and go, oh, what happened? But
yeah, that's exactly the same. I did not wake up at 2 a.m.
I mean, for a free practice, it's a bit much, isn't it?
Yeah, and also, especially with FP3, wake up at 3, watch free practice, and then do I go to sleep at 4 just to wake up at 6 for the qualifying, or do I just stay up? And then I've been up since like 3 a.m.
I think it's actually 2 a.m. it started, or 2:30. It was just not... Anyway, I don't think anything of vast importance happened in the free practice sessions.
Yeah, well, I woke up, and the main thing I saw was somehow Hamilton was fastest in both of them, which was a nice surprise.
I must admit, the whole weekend was a feeling of, when is that Mercedes going to drop out of the window and not be the fastest thing on track?
And the answer was never.
Yeah, it didn't.
Yeah, I think Toto and Lewis were saying we're going to change some of the setup, and I kind of just thought, oh, they're going to mess Hamilton up again with the setup.
Yeah.
But then, even though he qualified 10th, and I'm getting ahead of myself a bit. I mean, at no point was Hamilton slow all weekend.
No, the only reason... Well, let's skip over free practice, because, again, nobody kind of stuffed it into the wall.
Yeah.
I think I checked the FP1 lists, and I don't think even there was anybody out in FP1 who wasn't a regular driver.
I'm looking again, I don't think so.
I did check at the time, and I think even...
Well, there's like 10 of them in Brazil, so...
I think
Mexico, they do a lot.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I saw any unusual names, so there wasn't even that to talk about.
It's quite, kind of nothing, really.
Yeah, so in qualifying, we'll just skip over that.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I don't think there were any big... Oh, Perez out again in...
Yeah.
You see, I was thinking about the whole Perez thing, and I know people are like, oh, God, why didn't they give another driver a chance? But actually thinking back to before he joined Red Bull...
Yeah.
He was I would say he was a kind of Hulkenberg, Gasly, Ocon kind of midfield level driver.
Yeah.
He definitely wasn't like a Logan Sargent or a Lance Stroll who had really bad moments.
No.
And I don't think he was like a rising star where people went, like, I don't know, like a Leclerc or even a Sainz, where people would go, oh yeah, wait till he gets in a good car, he'll fly.
He had been around for a long time, is the thing.
Yeah.
And he'd got podiums in like the Racing Point and the Sauber, but like the 2012 Sauber.
So yeah, he was.
Yeah.
He was a good enough driver, so I think that more indicates a big failing of the Red Bull.
Mm.
And I think Max Verstappen has been embedded for so long at Red Bull that they're making changes to the car to favour his particular driving style. And if that doesn't gel with Perez, then, I mean, we saw like 2022 how Hamilton just kind of came apart, basically, because he wasn't used to driving ground effect.
Yeah.
And it really did not suit his particular style, the way that ground effect Mercedes was set up.
But also, to be clear, Mercedes in 2021 was a championship winning car.
Mm.
And in 2022, they were like third in the championship and they had a bit of a tractor most of the time. Like the car did go quite a lot backwards for both Hamilton and Russell.
Yeah. But then, like, Russell came in from Williams and was immediately, I think he was fourth and Hamilton was sixth, so...
Yeah, but only like 31 points.
Yeah. So, what I'm saying is, I think quite often we're down on Perez, and I think, actually, he's a decent driver in an awful car, and also an awful car where he doesn't get the team support.
Yeah. But, I mean... that you have to also kind of be, Formula One is kind of a bit of a results-oriented sport.
Yeah, it's a bit of a Shark Tank.
Like, Red Bull are now third in the Constructors. If they come third in the Constructors, which they probably will, they might have to just look at Perez and kind of think, well, if you'd won a handful of races, we could have still won, because they're like not even 53 points behind.
I have seen a list of, like, I think the last... Is this his fourth or fifth year, Perez, where he is?
This is his fourth.
But it shows every year and where Red Bull would have been in the Constructors if it was only Max scoring points. And it doesn't make an awful lot of difference.
Well, whether Perez is there or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Max is on 403 at the moment. So
that would get him behind Mercedes. That would drop him because Mercedes were at 425.
Yeah, so he would be fighting for fourth instead of fighting for third.
Well, really, he's fighting for first now because it's 130 points back to Mercedes, but it's only 50 points up to the lead. So if you kind of flip that and say, what if Perez had won? What if Perez had, instead of crashing in Monaco, if he'd won that race, that's another 25 and he's just got second.
Well, what you're saying, they're about 50, 60 points off the lead. So 60 points, that's 5 third places.
Yeah.
Which, if their races, if Max has won 8 races, getting 5 of them on the podium shouldn't be out of Perez's reach, really.
Well, no, it's not. Yeah, it's not asking him to match Max. It's asking him to match like Hamilton or like Sainz.
Yeah, but anyway, I think that car is awful, and I don't think it's designed for Sergio. Anyway, that was the only really big news as such from Q3 was that Perez dropped out in Q1. Q1. Q2, Colapinto smacked it into the wall.
He did so quite towards the end, I think.
Yeah, he still actually out-qualified Liam Lawson, which is quite funny.
And Albon, which is interesting. He's definitely matched Albon or beaten him a lot more than Sargent ever did.
I don't think Sargent ever did. Yeah, so Colapinto, people like Max, actually everybody's saying there should be a place for him in Formula One because he's actually outdoing Albon when he's been in the sport for about 4 or 5 races.
Yeah.
And He's ridiculously fast and he's doing hilarious things like that start where he just went, oh, look, there's a gap, I'm going through it.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I'm kind of quite excited about the GM thing.
Yeah.
Where now it looks like we are actually going to get the 11th team on the grid. Because
Yeah,
for some reason it was just Michael Andretti everyone had a problem with.
Yeah. He's now moved to an ambassadorial role, which means he'll be floating around like a Helmut Marko or like Niki Lauda did before he died.
Mm.
I think it was him being a team boss, which is weird because I looked up Michael Andretti and he's actually the head of, like, if there is such a thing, he's like US racing royalty.
Yeah.
He's got impressive list of results. He's like...
Is he not a champion, or is that Mario?
He's an F1 world champion.
Yeah, I mean, that's like...
He's set records in NASCAR. He's set records in IndyCar racing. His children, his nephews. He's like the head of a family.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird, but also, like I said, when I heard that they turned him down, it's in line with the Formula One vision. They want America in. They want to get, America away from IndyCar and NASCAR and into Formula One.
Mm.
They actually said we want big brand names like Cadillac or General Motors.
Yeah.
To make it a global brand, and they are one of the, if not the biggest car maker on the planet. I think it's between them and Volkswagen Audi Group.
Well, certainly in America, then they're the biggest.
But yeah, having Audi and Cadillac as two names.
Yeah, it's
and
good.
Also, interestingly, Cadillac have agreed as part of their submission that I think by 2028 they'll be developing engine packages.
Yeah.
So it's bringing another engine manufacturer in. So yeah, it's all good.
But it just is a bit strange that, like, everybody said, like, all the team bosses said, oh, we don't want another team because it'll dilute the pool and because of all this kind of stuff. And then as soon as Michael Andretti was out the way, they were just like, yeah, it's fine.
It's probably the FIA saying, without Michael Andretti, we can tip a bit more money into the prize pot.
Yeah, I guess so.
Or, knowing the way these things go, they probably said to Ferrari, your heritage bonus will be safe.
Yeah. Your like entire budget of like Williams or Haas that you get given every year for just turning up.
Also, Ferrari are going to be supplying them with engines.
Is that confirmed?
Well, nothing's confirmed until it actually happens. But
kind of makes the most sense to me, though.
But also, it's another bit of money for Ferrari and get them on board, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think when it comes to veto, Ferrari actually has... I think Ferrari, McLaren and Williams probably have a lot more voting power.
Yeah, because they're the heritage teams, aren't they?
Yeah, they've been around since, well, at least the 70s, at least the 50s in Ferrari's case.
Ferrari was the 50s, McLaren was late 60s, early 70s?
Yeah, and then...
I'm not quite sure about Williams, I think it was probably 70s as well.
Yeah, 76 or something.
Anyway, we're off topic as always.
Yeah,
the only thing that slowed... Lewis Hamilton qualified in 10th, which was a bit of a jaw-drop moment.
Mm.
But he had one hot lap where he locked up and went straight down an escape road.
Right.
And I didn't actually see this, but his second hot lap, he just drifted wide.
Yeah.
And then he got it deleted for track limits, so...
But that deleted time wasn't fast enough anyway, because he drifted wide. It would have been 10th still.
Yeah, as it was, rather hilariously, he was 15 seconds off the pace.
Yeah, 15 seconds slower than Hulkenberg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas actually I'm looking at FP2 and doing it in my head. Was he fastest in Q2?
Let's...
I think he was. Yeah, I think he was.
32.5. And then a 33.2 in Q1. No,
But
Russell was faster in Q1.
But Hamilton was faster in Q2, so it was a fairly even split.
So he easily could have been on pole if he'd had a good lap.
Yeah, he's ruffled a few feathers after the race by saying, oh, I could have won it if I got a decent qualifying in.
Yeah, he could have done, I'm sorry.
Well, also, but then we don't know how much Russell would have put the hammer down if he'd had Hamilton next to him on the grid. And
yeah, because with Russell cruising away from the Ferraris, he could manage a lot better than Lewis had to.
Yeah.
Because he had to actually fight through the field.
Hmm. Oh God, I was going to say something else about that time and qualifying, and I can't remember. I'm just looking down. Oh yeah, that was it. Now the really interesting thing about this race, really, the fight for drivers is over. The constructors is kind of settled out. But if you look in the constructors championship from 6th, 7th, and 8th, if you look at Haas, Alpine, and RB, there's 4 points between them going into the race, and then the default 3 spaces left when the top 7 don't get through went to Yuki Tsunoda for RB, Hulkenberg for Haas, and Gasly for Alpine, who did a storming job in qualifying third.
Yeah, I don't really know how he did that, to be honest.
He's really lit up recently. So you've got those 3 teams that are fighting 6, 7, 8, and between them, they've got 1 driver each into the top 10, which is, I mean, to be honest, that's something in the next couple of races I'm going to be probably almost more interested in than what's happening with the big names at the front.
Well, certainly where Norris is relative to Verstappen doesn't really matter anymore.
No.
I'll be kind of mentally counting up the points that the top 3 teams are scoring. But
the top 3 constructors.
They'll put a graphic up as well all the time saying, as it stands, blah, blah, blah.
But you see, you've got 3 teams at the top covered by 53 points, to be accurate.
Yeah.
And then you've got 3 teams covered by, I think it was 6, 7 points going in.
Yeah.
Which, okay, they can't hit the top and hit, like, I mean, apart from Brazil where Alpine got a double podium.
Exactly. If that happens again, whoever gets that sort of luck has it sewn up. That's another reason to kind of pay attention.
Well, actually, if they get that kind of luck, they're only 36 behind Aston Martin.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, if Stake get a 1-2, then they'll move up to... I think they actually can't overtake RB, because that's 46.
Yeah.
They can score 44, 45 with the fastest lap?
44 with the fastest lap.
Oh, okay, so they could come... But then going into the final race...
They'll be up in the mix.
If they score...
Yeah, I think that's...
Actually, I'll just be looking to see if they can score any points. Because actually, Zhou was quite good in that race. He had decent pace.
I saw him up in P9 at one point.
Yeah, and I was kind of... I think he was at the head of a massive train.
Yeah.
But I was also just, like, really hoping that he could stay up there and get some points for the team.
Get something on the board, yeah.
Yeah, before he has to go. Probably to Ferrari, it looks like, as a reserve.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the... Again, the Colapinto smacked it into the wall and I think had a pit lane start because he probably had to repair most of the car.
Yeah.
And I do feel really bad for Williams because they've spent a fortune building cars. They must have the most experienced mechanics on the grid.
The most tired mechanics on the grid.
Yeah. But again, we went into the starting grid and it looks almost exactly like the qualifying grid. There weren't like penalties or, you know, rearrangements or...
Well, Bottas had a 5-place grid penalty. And so, having qualified 19th, he started 19th in a, what I'm going to call a Sauber special.
Yeah.
Because Colapinto went to the back. So I think Stake were like, well, we qualified 19th. If we take an extra power unit, we'll start 19th.
Yeah.
Why not? Stroll
went from 20th to 18th somehow by that weird kind of magic.
Yeah.
But I mean, really,
yeah.
We've seen like starting grids that you just have to kind of go through it person by person and go, right, so they went down 5 and went up 3 and...
Yeah, but I think we're beyond the days of like 65-place grid penalties.
Well, you say that, but we're coming to the end of a very long season with a limited number of power units.
Yeah.
You know, if somebody goes into a wall and, you know, hammers a drive shaft into a gearbox or something, there's probably nothing left in the box.
I think they do tend to just say it's a pit lane start after a certain point.
Yeah.
Or,
it's also if they make changes in Parc Ferme as well.
Yeah, it's Parc Ferme is what sent Colapinto to the back. So they're pit lane.
So the race... Well, I mean, the big headline news is that Max got his 3rd or 4th, depending on how you look at it, World Championship.
Legally speaking, his 4th.
Yeah. I was actually thinking about this. I know we all joke about like Abu Dhabi 2021. But I think this is possibly his cleanest, most fought-for world title out of the four.
It's certainly his most kind of legitimising, I think.
Yeah, because 2021 there was an argument about, which we're not going to revisit. 2022 there was a fuss over whether or not they overspent on the budget cap.
And it was also kind of like clearly the fastest car.
Well, I was going to say 2023 it was just...
That was like, oh, I still can't believe that season happened, to be honest.
It was almost like they were in a different formula. It's like, oh yeah, we've entered this F1 car and F2. Oh look, we won all but one of the races by the same team.
Yeah, right now, Ferrari in the teams...
Yeah.
Actually, no, Red Bull have 555 points in the Constructors this year.
Yeah.
Last year, Max scored 575.
Yeah.
So he wouldn't be leading the Constructors. Or he actually would have won it last year on his own.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, you're right.
This year, there was a fight. There was a challenge by Norris.
And not by having the fastest car, but by actually being the better driver. Verstappen clawed it back.
You say he clawed it back, but...
Well, he failed to let Norris catch up, or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, everything he did was... I mean, I'm going to go back to, again, that statement by Rosberg when he retired from Formula One after his world title.
Yeah.
He said the reason he did that is because I think he actually put his girlfriend or his fiancée on pause. And he kind of told his family, I'll see you in 6 months.
Well, yeah, because when you're travelling...
Yeah.
What time do you have?
But also, he was like, this is my one shot to be a world champion. I'm going to dedicate absolutely everything to it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Max did. And I think it's more than like, okay, Brazil was a masterclass.
Yeah.
Of rain driving. But you look at the races like Austria, where he had an accident and still got fifth.
Yeah.
And Mexico, where he got a 20-second penalty, but he actually reduced the amount of points that Lando could score, because if you look at the timings, Lando could have won that, but instead he was reduced to, I think, third. You've got a better memory for stuff like this.
Second. So the gap, the points difference was smaller after that, what he did.
Yeah. And like every single race you look at, even if it was a difficult race or like he got criticism for pushing Norris wide or whatever, everything he did was focused towards one goal of just optimising the results.
And even, like stuff like, I think if you look at it, since Miami or whatever, Norris has only actually outscored him on like 4 or 5 races across like 20. Yeah. Because Verstappen, even though he wasn't winning, he was just damage control.
And unfortunately, I mean, Lando Norris is great, and I think he would agree with this. He just didn't have that absolute bite of, I want this so badly, I will do anything.
Yeah. But I think also, to be fair to Norris, it's actually the first year that the McLaren has been capable of winning.
Yeah.
Let alone challenging for the championship. So I think even if they walk away with just the Constructors, they can be quite happy. And Norris has got much less experience, not just racing in general, but racing at the front than Verstappen has.
Yeah, and I did see a comment from Lando where he said, now I understand what's necessary to win a championship.
Yeah.
And, I mean, actually, ultimately, all this conversation, it was pretty much over in the first 10 races when Max won 7 of them.
I mean, yeah.
That's what actually set the foundation and the bedrock that everybody else had to challenge. And
yeah. And even Miami was kind of part of that group.
Yeah.
Monaco and Miami. And then it started to kind of unravel after Austria, because then it was Russell, then it was Hamilton, and then Piastri, and then Hamilton again, and then Norris again. Yeah.
But, yeah. And again, even in this, see, I said going into this race, I said, oh yeah, but, you know, Max won't play it strategically. He just is a racer who wants to win races.
Mm.
And then Hamilton was carving his way up through the field, and he comes up behind Max, and we got the delayed radio message. And GP, his race engineer, actually came on the radio and said, remember who you're racing, Max.
Yeah.
So Max was pretty much let him pass, didn't he?
Yeah.
Because he wasn't Lando Norris.
which is quite a kind of like mature moment from Max, I think.
Yeah, and I think also, Max must have recognised that if he was in 5th and he knows that Lewis has started in 10th.
There's no way.
Yeah. He's probably looking at it and going, I could fight this, I could scrub life out of my tyres, I could lose time defending, I could risk an accident. And what's going to happen? Lewis will get past anyway.
Yeah, because it's Lewis.
I mean, also, I saw one of these really rubbishy Facebook articles by somebody who I can't even remember, who probably did one season 15 years ago and is now like an ex-driver pundit.
Probably, yeah.
But he said, oh yeah, Lewis Hamilton is one of the... I think he said he's the only person who's actually kind of matched Max Verstappen on track. He's the only one who's actually not been completely monstered by him.
Well, that's why 2021 was so good. Because it was actually prime Max Verstappen at his youngest and hungriest.
Yeah.
Not his youngest, but versus prime, already veteran Hamilton. And it was almost exactly as you'd expect it to be, where they finished 1 and 2 in like 10 of the 20 races.
Yeah.
And they was just so far ahead of everybody else.
And like, you look at what Max has done to Lando Norris this season.
Yeah.
And like, Lewis was just like, yeah, I'm not accepting that.
It's almost like this season is the reverse of kind of when Vettel was leading Ferrari. Because at the start of the year, they would kind of equal out, right?
Yeah.
And it would be like Vettel would win one, Hamilton would win one, and there'd be a kind of something of a title challenge, and then Mercedes would just arrive and demolish for the last half.
Well, to be honest, a lot of the Mercedes winning years, they actually won them by development.
Yeah.
Like you say, they would start off on a fairly equal par with like
usually
maybe
Ferrari.
one or two other teams, especially
Yeah.
Ferrari. But then their mid-season development was lethal. And
Yeah.
like you say, by the end of the season, they'd be like, oh yeah, well, let's just dial it back to about 15 seconds in the lead.
And
You know, that-
Ferrari would always kind of fall apart somehow.
Yeah.
But I think this year, it kind of is the opposite, because Red Bull started the year out as the strongest, and then ever since then, everybody else has caught up, and now Verstappen's won, not by dominating at the end, but by dominating at the beginning.
Yeah, and also by some very, like you say, mature drives.
Yeah.
So yeah, George Russell won, by the way, in case you haven't seen it.
Which makes this the first ever season in Formula One history to have 7 multiple winners.
Yeah. And you got to remember he did lose one race win just from his plank not being thick enough.
Yeah. But then that would have meant that Hamilton wasn't the multiple winner.
Oh, yeah. Also, do you understand any of this fuss? Apparently there's titanium screws and plates that surround the plank and skid plates, and some people have found a loophole in the rules where they can use them to stop the wooden plank from wearing down too much.
I haven't heard anything about that.
Yeah, there's been an FIA... But let's start at the beginning.
Yes.
Every car has a wooden plank bolted underneath it, which is hilarious in the quarter of the way through the 21st century.
It's
and the technical
50s technology.
Technical regulations specify how thin that plank is allowed to be at the end of the race. So if you run your car too low and it's bouncing and you're getting sparks, that's all wearing out that wooden plank. And that's what George Russell got disqualified for in Spa?
Was that what he got DQ'd for? I thought
Yeah.
that was just fuel.
Anyway.
Because I know that Hamilton and Leclerc got DQ'd for that last year in the USA.
Oh, maybe that's what I was thinking of, yeah.
Yeah, it was exactly
So you
that.
can get disqualified if that is literally a fraction of a millimetre too thin. But there's been a new technical directive because 7 of the teams have found a part of the rules where you can run a titanium skid plate with screws, I think either side of or around that wooden plank.
Right.
You can actually set it so those titanium parts will take some of the wear and protect that plate.
The screws, yeah.
And again, it's kind of like the FIA is saying, we don't think anybody's actually using it to cheat, but on the other hand, we just wanted a bit of clarity. And I think Fred Vasseur from Ferrari was really annoyed because it was literally, I think, 6 days before they turned the wheel in Las Vegas. And he was like, are you serious? We've got to make... I mean, you said we can do it. You know, we can adjust ride height and stuff, but really, you shouldn't be doing this stuff 6 days before a race.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bit weird. I had somehow missed that completely. So I assume it wasn't a particularly big drama in the end.
No. I was actually just preparing for this podcast and I found a really interesting thing.
Mm-hmm.
This is on the BBC, so as you know, if you listen to this every week or every race, I spend way too much time on Facebook, and my Facebook feed has been curated, so it gives me these kind of fairly...
You want to get... Okay.
Yeah, so I read these annoying clickbaity articles, but this is actually there on the BBC Sport website. Tim Mayer, who's been a senior steward for 15 years, was fired by text from Ben Sulayem's assistant. And he says that the FIA is going to run out of people to do these jobs. So we know Niels Wittich has been fired as race director.
Yeah.
Another guy whose name I'm looking for was fired as director of compliance.
That's a creepy George Orwellian title, isn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, I think it's like basically chief scrutineer.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like loads of people within the senior roles at the FIA are just basically not even leaving, but just being sacked.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mayer said he was fired via a text from one of Ben Sulayem's assistants on Tuesday.
That is weird.
And also, it's really... I mean, it says, for a federation that relies on volunteers, to fire by text somebody who has made a significant contribution does not speak well of the management of the federation.
Yeah.
He said the reason for his dismissal as a steward was Ben Sulayem took offence at the contents of an appeal document filed by the Circuit of Americas, which is obviously host of the US Grand Prix in Austin. Oh, apparently they fined the circuit €500,000 after a track invasion.
Oh.
Okay. And they had a right of review.
Right, I see, yeah. So I'm just reading it as well.
But I mean, it does seem to, when you kind of combine this news with the fact that a lot of the drivers, and actually the GPDA, has taken a rare move of issuing an open letter to say we're not happy with things like jewellery, underwear, swearing.
Yeah.
I think you said it's almost like they're kind of teenagers now and the parents are cracking down.
Yeah. So, I mean, it is kind of... It feels like Ben Sulayem's days are kind of numbered at this point.
Yeah.
Because at a certain point, I mean, if they're annoying the tracks, they're annoying all the stewards. Oh, sorry, he's annoying the tracks and all the stewards and firing everybody, and all the drivers don't like him. He's not going to have a sport around him anymore.
Oh, he's not going to have the support, is he? It's very...
Yeah.
It is very odd, and it's quite interesting to look at all the politics behind it.
Yeah.
Happier news. One of my favourite drivers, Valtteri Bottas, there have been very warm and loving words being exchanged. Nothing official, but Toto Wolff has said we'd love to have him back in the team.
Yes.
As a reserve driver. And Mick Schumacher has parted company with Mercedes.
Yes.
So Mercedes don't have a reserve driver lined up for 2025.
Yeah.
And Toto Wolff would love to work with Valtteri Bottas again.
Well, hang on, because the thing they want in a reserve driver, especially with Kimi Antonelli being so young and inexperienced, is they really want someone who knows the team very well, who is very experienced and reliable and consistent. So why on earth would they choose Bottas?
Well, exactly. And somebody who could just drop into the team. Probably actually also is a very undramatic guy. He's not really involved in politics or...
Yeah, he's just,
There's no drama with him, is there?
I think Hamilton has said that Bottas was actually his favourite teammate of his entire career.
Yeah, I think I'm not surprised actually he did so badly. Hamilton did so badly in 2022 because I think he felt betrayed partly by the decision of Abu Dhabi, but also by the fact that Toto Wolff just brought in like young wonder kid George Russell, and I think Hamilton would have preferred the support of somebody like Bottas, who he'd been working with for years, who kind of got him, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, I think new regs with the ground effect cars, new teammate coming back after Abu Dhabi must have been quite a kind of massive change for Hamilton. Must have been kind of just like, well, the kind of Mercedes and the sport that I knew is kind of gone now. It's a new era.
You kind of look at it like that. It's kind of amazing he stuck it out for 3 more years before he moved on, isn't it?
And actually got back up to like winning races for Mercedes.
Yeah.
And has not just called it quits, but he's actually thinking, I can get an 8th
title.
Yeah.
Also, there is debate about Hamilton's going to Ferrari.
Yes.
But Hamilton himself personally brings so many brands with him. He has brand sponsorship deals with like Hugo Boss and Amarve is his own brand, Tommy Hilfiger.
Yeah.
That people are actually saying almost in like a kind of semi-humorous way, but not that humorous. It's almost like Hamilton is going to be sponsoring Ferrari.
I mean, when they announced that he was moving there, Ferrari's stock price went up massively.
Yeah.
So, not completely wrong.
No, I mean, it reminds me of in the early noughties, and this is going to sound irrelevant, but it's not. Germany runs on a system of proportional representation for the government. So quite often smaller parties can wield huge power because you need to get a coalition of parties to agree on a policy.
Yeah.
So the Green Party is very powerful in Germany, or it was at the time. And for that reason, Shell partnered with Ferrari because they had Michael Schumacher as the I'm winning everything superstar in Germany. Yeah. So Shell thought, well, if we are attached to Michael Schumacher and if everybody sees our logo on Michael Schumacher's overalls when he's up on the top step of the podium, then people will like us better in Germany. And it was actually a kind of almost a political decision to get around the fact that the Green Party were getting so powerful.
Yeah.
So, this isn't the first time. I think Ferrari as well is just such a massive kind of brand. I almost said lifestyle brand, which I think unfortunately they are, as well as the fact they make cars.
Well, they're like a national identity in Italy, aren't they? The Tifosi. Yeah. So, yeah.
But it'll be very interesting. I'm trying to think what else happened in the kind of world of politics.
Well, there's the Andretti thing we kind of touched on.
We covered that.
So GM are now going to be on the grid in 2026.
I think so.
Which will be fun.
Which will also be the kind of culmination of the FIA's grand goal. I haven't looked it up, but you're going to have both the Volkswagen Audi group and the GM group represented on the Formula One grid.
Yeah.
Which will be, I'm almost certain, the two largest car companies.
Probably like half the cars made in the whole world.
Like, largest car company in the world.
I'm looking it up too.
Oh, okay.
Toyota.
Oh, they have been in and out of F1, to be honest.
Are they not currently hanging out with Haas?
Oh yeah, they are involved with Haas as a technical partner, but Haas are using Ferrari engines. Yeah, so Volkswagen Group are second and General Motors are fifth. So that is...
So yeah, number 4 Stellantis is... That I think is actually Fiat Chrysler plus PSA, which is Peugeot.
Oh, does that include Ferrari then?
Could do.
I think Fiat own Ferrari.
Fiat Chrysler Automobiles. Oh god, this is complicated. It's got Maserati. I don't know if they do have Ferrari actually.
Okay, but yeah, I mean, it's been a big goal of Formula One has been to get big name manufacturers, because again, you know, if you can say to yourself, oh, I drive a Honda and there's a Honda winning, it's kind of attachment, isn't it?
Yeah, and General Motors. I don't know, Chevrolet, Buick, GMC, and Cadillac.
Yeah. And obviously they've chosen Cadillac as their kind of premium brand.
Well, when we went to Le Mans, we saw some. Oh, did we see Chevrolets or Cadillac sports cars?
Oh, I'm not sure. Probably Chevrolet, I think.
Gonna look it up.
While we're talking about that, the other interesting thing with Valtteri Bottas is Mercedes Petronas AMG Group are looking to buy a World Endurance Car team. Or I can't remember the exact details.
They've officially declared, I think, that they're re-entering.
Yeah.
Probably as a GT3, not a hypercar for now, but still.
Yeah. Which, that'll probably put them on the grid 70 years after the disaster, won't it?
Yeah. But they were. I thought they were racing Le Mans in like the 80s and 90s. Because there's that video of the Le Mans, the Le Mans car that flips over backwards, and that's a Mercedes.
Oh, okay. I thought they left all motor racing until they got back into Formula One.
Definitely Formula One they were out of. I don't know, I'd have to look it up properly. It was
anyway,
Cadillac, by the way.
Yeah. To stop this becoming the rambliest podcast ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ferrari got a 3-4 in the race.
Which was pretty good, actually, for them.
Yeah. Max came in 4th, which is all he needed to do, because he built 5th. Because he beat Lando Norris in 6th. I mean, to be honest, the last couple of races, Norris has seemed kind of a bit uninspiring, and he's made mistakes. And
yeah, I mean, he dominated in Singapore. And then, what was that? USA. That's Kota. He came 4th. Where there was a lot of fighting with Verstappen.
Yeah.
Mexico, he came 2nd. That was pretty good. But then you're right, 6th in Brazil and 6th again in Vegas. He kind of has just lost. I think the McLaren, the team, are also saying that they've lost performance based that they did have from their magic wing thing.
Yeah, I think they've been told to change their rear wing as well.
So I think that kind of second, I don't know, I'm trying to divide up the season. That sort of post-Austria, but pre-Singapore, they were kind of the fastest car on the grid.
Yeah, and again, this is why Max is a 4-time world champion, because almost no matter what the car was doing, what the regulations were doing, whether the track suited him or not, he was just 100% committed.
Yeah.
Perez got into 10th, so he actually got some points.
Well, a point.
And that meant that Hulkenberg and Tsunoda brought in the only points for the battle for 6th.
Which I think just tightened everything up again.
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous.
Gasly DNF'd from P3, which was really rough for Alpine.
Yeah, I mean, they nearly had a double, 2 consecutive podiums. Though I don't know if he would have held on to P3.
Not against Hamilton, I don't think, when he got up to him. But
we've now got 4 points between Haas and RB with Alpine in the middle. 50, 49, 46. So that's my pick for what to watch next time it's on.
And that's quite a lot of money to go from P8 to P6.
Oh, yeah. I mean, for those smaller teams, it will make a hell of a difference.
And Williams are only 29 points behind RB. So if they have a really good race, like a double points, they could catch back up and enter that for the last race.
Yeah, I mean, I keep looking at the results and thinking, yeah, it's not likely. But as we say, Las Vegas, you normally get track temperatures anywhere from 35 to 50. And Las Vegas was down in 11 or 12.
Yeah, it was really cold. And somehow that's just where the Mercedes works.
Yeah, so maybe the Mercedes gets too hot. Unfortunately, we're now going off to the Middle East, so...
Yeah, Qatar and Abu Dhabi. Although it is night races, both of them.
Yeah.
So it might be a bit better.
Be interesting to see roughly what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, the other thing is, apparently, like I was saying about how Perez probably doesn't suit the car, apparently Ferrari are already making technical changes to their car.
For?
Lewis Hamilton.
Oh. Interesting.
I don't know if you know how the suspension works at the front.
A little bit. There's not really much suspension to speak of.
No, but they've gone, I think, from a push rod system to a pull rod system at the front already.
Is that on all cars or just Ferrari?
Oh, just Ferrari.
Oh.
And apparently that's to favour Lewis Hamilton. And interestingly, they're looking at the cooling of the overall car because Lewis has complained a lot in that Mercedes about being too hot.
Yeah.
So I don't know how Charles Leclerc feels about this, to be honest.
Yeah, it will be interesting. I mean, because Leclerc's been quite competitive throughout the different regulations.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been, since the summer break, he's actually the driver who scored the most points this year.
Yeah.
He's won races, like in 2022 he was second, and he kind of was challenging for the championship.
Yeah, I mean, he says, on paper, he says, oh yeah, to, work with one of the most experienced and best drivers on the field. It would be great to drive alongside him and learn. But, my nose would be a bit put out if I was him. Because, he's got a solid, reliable wingman in Carlos Sainz. We've always said Sainz has one of the best strategy brains, including the pit wall.
Yeah.
I mean, he can see strategy advantages that nobody else can see while he's driving.
Yeah.
And, to go from, Leclerc is the undisputed number one, Sainz is his backup driver, to suddenly having this kind of setup where you've got a superstar in the other garage, and you're kind of thinking, where's the support? Is it going to be support for me or support for him? Or
yeah, I think. Thing is, he did get on quite well with Vettel, did Leclerc?
Yeah.
In a similar kind of role, so maybe he does actually he kind of just does have that kind of like learning brain.
Maybe there isn't any drama, yeah.
And I think also, to be a little bit kind of cynical, if I was Leclerc, I'd be thinking, Hamilton's 39?
Yeah.
Even if he doesn't retire, surely by his mid-40s, he's got to be slowing down a bit, and then I can have him. He's 27 and Lewis is almost 40.
Yeah.
If he just stays with Ferrari, time will kind of come to him.
Yeah, I think people say it's 1 or 2 tenths by the time you get to a kind of Hamilton-Alonso kind of age, of just kind of natural sharpness and reactions. And
I think right now, Leclerc, Russell, Norris, Verstappen, they're kind of at their almost getting up to their peak, which is kind of early 30s.
I was going to say late 20s to early 30s, depending on when they started, where they've got enough experience and racecraft, but they're still not.
Yeah, well, I think Verstappen's at his peak right now, obviously.
Yeah.
Norris probably needs another season or two to get to that point.
He's got to get the kind of psychology and the racecraft honed more than anything.
And I think just the experience of fighting at the front, being maybe more hardline on team orders and stuff, and kind of learning what the right thing to do there is. Yeah,
I mean, there were results where they gave points away to Piastri. I mean, obviously now it doesn't matter because I'm just looking at it, actually, even if he got another 7 or 8 points by, having Piastri gift him a win, he still would be 40 or 50 points behind Verstappen. Even if the team was if Piastri was definitely his wingman and it was in his contract, I still don't think he would have even come close, would he?
Well, no, but I think that's because of the sort of early Verstappen dominance. Yeah. He opened up a 50, 60 point gap in the first 7 races.
And I think that's crucial in every season because that kind of, for every team, that sets who's in charge and who's behind and who you're going to focus on.
I think hopefully next year is like this, but from the beginning.
Yeah.
Because then it'll be a bit like anybody's game up until the end, which will be a proper laugh.
Yeah. I mean, I think you naturally get 2 or 3 leaders emerging anyway, but you're right.
Yeah, I mean, this year we've got Max, Norris and Leclerc. And then it's a bit of a big gap back to Piastri. 51 points. It's actually a smaller gap than between Verstappen and Norris, but
Yeah. There's also 3 teams at the front, which is quite nice.
4? with Mercedes. I mean, sometimes Mercedes are at the front. It depends what the weather's like, apparently.
To be honest, Mercedes are, as they say, a lonely fourth.
Yeah, in the constructors, and they're kind of 6th and 7th in the drivers, close
Which
to
is
each other, but not to anyone else.
Yeah, which is actually where they should be. Well, they should be 7th and 8th if Perez got his finger out, but...
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't think there's much else in the way of politics or anything, is there?
I don't think much else has really happened.
We got Qatar tomorrow. Apologies for being a bit late with the podcast.
Yeah, Qatar's not usually that interesting.
Well, who can say it this season?
Yeah, I don't know, Perez might win, just to really...
Cat among the pigeons.
Yeah, really cement this as a weird season.
Hey, if Perez wins the next two, there'll be 8 multiple winners.
Oh my god. For like... Well, hang on a second. 1982, there were the top... What is that? 11 drivers won a race. Which I don't think is possible now. Because that would mean that like Hulkenberg and Tsunoda would win a race alongside Perez and Alonso.
No, we've had 8 drivers and we've got 2 left to go.
But also none of them have won only one.
Yeah, it's very odd.
And then in 1982, the champion won 1 race. Nobody won more than 2. Whereas Verstappen's obviously won 8, so that's a bit unfair.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yep, so we'll be back after the Qatar Grand Prix, and then we'll have the season finale at Abu Dhabi a week after that.
Yeah.
One thing I will look up for you before I come back, I can't remember when was the last time we had 11 teams on the grid, because it seems to me there have been 10 teams for a heck of a long time.
I can check that.
I've just had a quick Google and I can't see anything.
Oh god, well, okay, let me start. Off the top of my head, I want to say 2016.
Was it that recently? Oh god, you
Because
had
we
the
had
whole
Mana or
thing.
Marussia.
You had Mana and Marussia
And then, you can't really go, but Constructors Championship, there we go. 10 in 2017. Yeah, Mana Mercedes, I think, capitulated after 2016. And then that was it.
Okay,
So yeah, 2016.
So it's only 8 years. Anyway,
Should be enough.
Yeah, we shall see you, hear you, talk to you back after the Qatar Grand Prix.
Yep.
Thank you for listening. I'm Graham Miller. Search up Graham H. Miller if you want a good mystery thriller. Look at Official Tibby's other channels if you want to see some YouTube. And we'll talk to you soon.
Yep, thanks for listening.
Bye.